So we're going to get started right away. I'm going to let everybody introduce yourselves real quick, just so everybody knows who's talking. And we're going to have microphones in the audience, so if there's any questions, you can think of them now, and you can see raising the hand on both sides, so please. So we'll chat for a couple minutes and then bring it out. My name is Barnett. I'm Festival Director and Curator of the Philly Independent Film Festival. And I am very happy to be here. Got a lot of notes in front of me here. So what I wanted to do was sort of bring the questioning to the current context of what's going on in our world right now. These are very powerful films. As a curator of a festival myself for 17 years, the film work I would like to bring out was incredible. Camera work, the acting, the directing, these were clearly from the hundreds of films that were picked out. These are really just great films. So congratulations on that. It's very difficult to make a good film. So bringing good films in means there's a story, there's a good story. And what I've noticed in this, and please anybody correct me if I'm wrong in here, is that I saw a lot of themes going on here. One was control. Control in context of the individual Judaism specifically, but also control from the individual and how they feel in the world that they're in. And I really feel it reflects what's happening in our world right now. And these were all obviously thematically from the Jewish perspective, but people questioning their Judaism, looking at things differently, like the Anne Frank house, for example. I bet nobody would have ever thought of that, Anne Frank, a comedic platform like that, for example. But everybody was laughing and got it, and there was that sudden sense of seriousness. This happened through all three of these films for me. And so what I would like to bring to the question to our I guess you're not all filmmakers per se, but is how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about this idea?
Can you introduce them first?
Yeah, well, you were going to do that, right? Go ahead. Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Hi, I'm Arielle Goldman. I'm the writer, director, and actor of Kiss My Ass.
I'm Rapkin. I'm the writer, director of the Anne Frank gift shop.
I'm Chaim Levin, and I was in Queer and FRUM.
Thanks for reminding me. We're jumping right into it. So, yeah, so let's bring it back to the idea of control. And anybody can answer, and I'll pass this mic over. But how do you see these films now in the context of what's happening in the Jewish community right now? Do you think that there's any different way that you would feel in making it or being in them? Or is there maybe a different way you'd approach it? Or any way you would just feel about it? Anyone can answer too.
So I've been thinking a lot about this because I think a lot of things have shifted over the last 5 weeks for a lot of people, myself included. And I've spent a lot of time debating people, especially online, but a lot of Orthodox people about the existence of gay people and queer people. And obviously for the last 5 weeks I have not been doing that. But I have been thinking about the fact that there are a lot of people who come from that community, myself included, who step out, like I did, who are now, we're kind of finding ourselves in a place where like we don't really know where to go. Because the big great world out there has, in a lot of ways, made it clear to us over the last few weeks that like our lives don't really matter. But the communities that we come from, especially if we're coming from an Orthodox community like mine, kind of also made that clear to us that our lives don't matter. So when I think about this film and I think about this journey that a lot of people take, it just makes me think that I wish that the community we came from made more space for people so that we didn't have to step out and then feel that ultimate like crushing rejection of like, oh well, actually you're not welcome here too. And I think that that's something that I wish would be thought about more, but can't have all of our wishes come true, I guess.
It's interesting that you brought up the idea of space. Listen, my film is a very dark comedy, and we're living in a really dark, strange time. And I've been taking actually a lot of comfort in events like this. I think in the last 5 weeks, Jewish people haven't really taken a minute to grieve. It's been a lot of, we're on the defensive. And events like this and hearing the Kaddish in a room together, I think has taken on a new meaning. And it's become even more of a beautiful chance to be together and hear those words and maybe mumble them to yourselves and just remind yourself that you're part of a community.
Yeah, I had kind of a similar experience sitting in the back, watching all of the films. It's the first time since October 7th that I've been in a space purely for like Jewish celebration and Jewish community. And I was so struck by how different all of the films were and how meaningful and political and just like broad all of the topics were. And it gave me a little bit of hope that our community is able to engage in conversation like that, and I do think that film is a way of engaging in conversation, and it made me think that even though this might be a small microcosm of everything else, it gave me hope that maybe, you know, in Arab communities across the world, similar things are happening, and if we all can just get together and experience it together somewhere down the line, there is possibility for that.
Yeah. Which brings me to the power and control thing, and that's something that I guess you could call me the keyboard warrior. I've been in a tremendous amount of battles online in this current time frame, and I'm watching this sort of dynamic out there. Things are happening. There's a tremendous shift out there happening. I'm no idea what it is, but I think this room does show exactly what you're saying, and the ability to get together like this. And I'm wondering, too, filmmakers and the ability as storytellers to actually make change or help bring change forward or tell a story that won't be forgotten, and what that power is. And I'm wondering if you feel that there is a way to sort of breach the divide through filmmaking and the ability to somehow bring film into this entire dialogue. And this is a question also for the audience if you're interested, but do you think that that's possible, or are we really sort of reaching for something here? I mean, can we really make a difference as filmmakers?
I really hope so. I mean, the Anne Frank gift shop grew out of a really disturbing study from 3 years ago that showed 2/3 of young Americans couldn't tell you how many Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, and 11% of respondents to this study somehow believe Jews caused the Holocaust. It was the first 50-state study of young Americans, and it was really disturbing, obviously, and it made international headlines. And I didn't set out to make an educational film by any means, but I was hoping that the comedy would disarm people, and then it would hit them with a message at the end. So that was the sort of goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I started writing Kiss My Ass before Roe was overturned, but as I saw that it was going to be happening. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to write it actually was because I found that myself and my friends didn't really know how to talk about and articulate all of the feelings that we felt seeing the future ahead of us, that our rights were going to be taken away from us. And I just really blatantly wanted to put the language out there that is in all of the trap laws against abortion, and let people really just hear what the legislation is saying to us, so that you don't have to flip through Instagram posts or Google things, but you just have the information right in front of you, and it can shock you or not shock you. But so in that way, I think that filmmaking, I do think, can make change and is powerful, because you have to just face the story that's in front of you, and you can't just escape it. You have to learn something by watching it.
Everybody agree? Yeah. Okay. So it brings me then to the control piece, which to me is the dynamic that's really sitting in all these films, all of them actually, and how this is used as filmmakers, but also from the story and how it clashes. So you have yourself as a filmmaker, you're showing this, like you said. How do you feel that we could bring these forward more? There's an event like this, but as we talk about these stories, it's clear that the three of you specifically wanted to tell these stories. There's a stat that I heard that 52% of millennials, think Hamas is just the government, this normal group out there. There's a tremendous amount of disinformation going on, fake news, everything, propaganda, everything. I think we're watching people, minds change and things differ. So you have these fantastic films that need to get out. So what do you think we can do here for this? How do we think we can get these stories out? Sitting on the stage is one thing, but what's another idea that you think we can bring to the crowd?
I think they were onto something in your film about the Instagram thing, because it's very clear, anyone who spends time on social media, that we're losing the propaganda war. There's no question about it. And because people have an attention span of 60 seconds or less, it's really we have to find a way to speak in that language. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think that if we're gonna, unbrainwash an entire generation of young people who are saying really awful things all the time, we're going to have to find a way to communicate with them in their media. And there are people doing that, but we're outnumbered. And that's just unfortunate fact of the climate that we're living in right now.
I do take comfort, though, in the fact that we are having those conversations. I did ultimately share the film with the Anne Frank House. I woke up one day to a LinkedIn message from the communications director. Oh, we've heard about the film. We would love to see it. And I was sort of dripping sweat. And I just sort of sent it off, and then 3 days later I got a reply. I was like, oh my god! But they did ultimately very much enjoy the movie. Said that they laughed, which was a huge relief. But also it said in the email, listen, we're asking ourselves these same questions all the time. These are the conversations we're having. And I took comfort in that, that we're not putting our heads in the sand. People everywhere are asking questions and trying to figure out a way forward. So that was helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's also good to bring up the films themselves were very brutish, if I may, in how you presented your information. Breaking the fourth wall, talking directly to the audience and things of this nature. And that's what struck me in watching these films, because a lot of times that doesn't necessarily work, but it really worked now, because you are answering and asking these questions that I found to be very relevant to the moment, which of course these films weren't made recently. So it sort of collides, it's colliding at the same time, so it's good. It's good filmmaking like that. So let's bring some people up with audience questions too, or we'll sit here and chit-chat amongst ourselves. So I'll throw one more thing out too, is The Anne Frank one too. I wasn't expecting a comedy, dark comedy like that. In all of these movies, I wasn't expecting what they were. Was there an attempt here to bring it in a different way to answer the question I answered before? Like, was that the attempt? Saying we have to look at this totally different. Now let's make a movie.
Yeah, I felt like you have to speak to young people in the language that they understand, which is comedy. And also to remind people, this is not ancient history. In these Q&As, I'm telling people, like, if Anne Frank was alive today, she would be 3 years younger than Mel Brooks. And Mel Brooks had a show on Hulu last year. Like, he's still working. And it's possible Anne Frank, she could have seen The Wizard of Oz on her, 11th birthday. And it was on the Delta in-flight app on the way to Savannah Film Festival. This is not, it's just important to remind people, this is not a long time ago.
Right. Any questions from the audience? Mic her up.
I can pass. Over there.
Yeah, if you can.
There's no pressure to stay, by the way. My brother already left, so if anyone is somewhere to be, I won't be offended.
Okay, first of all, kudos to the screening committee for your fantastic choices, and to all of you, first of all, I do have a question, but for your courage and for your, well, I don't know, courage is kind of not the right word, chutzpah, and it's like a holy kind of a chutzpah, really, and it does give me hope also that there could be hope for a pluralistic and I guess more of dialogue around these issues. So I think my question is for all of you. Was there a particular moment that felt like I have to move along, this story has to be told? Because I know for writers and storytellers and actors, there's this questioning that goes, I don't know, should I do this, should I not do this? Was there something that drove you, that moved you?
So when I came out of the closet, and I refer to it as when I came roaring out of the closet, I spent a long time living with secrets. This was a secret. This was like more secrets. And then I became aware of what was happening at Jonah, and there was just no way to not talk about it. And there are a lot of people in the Jewish gay community who were like, why are you so obsessed with this? Like, why can't you let it go? And I couldn't let it go. And so, because what I learned then, and what I've been seeing throughout time, is that these things were thriving on ignorance and people not knowing, especially what was happening at these places. And it just felt really urgent. It still feels really urgent to say that conversion therapy is still alive and well in the Orthodox community. It looks different. It seems there's no one organization, but so there's a sense of urgency of as Mordechai said in the film, maybe the whole house is not on fire, but some of the rooms are still on fire. So for me, that's where it comes from. Just I don't see an alternative. We have to do something about it. We just have to keep talking.
When Brian Hughes of Texas introduced the 6-week abortion ban, I wrote his office an email that just said, fuck you. And then I just got sadder and angrier, and I started writing this script also for my friend Molly to be in, because we're both friends, and I thought, I have to write this script. He's probably not going to read my email. Nobody cares about women. And so ultimately when I wrote the script, the phone number that when Molly gives her phone number to the abortion clinic is Senator Brian Hughes'
And I have nothing better than that. That's amazing.
Are there any other questions? Yep.
I was just thinking of, you're all dealing with very big topics, community acceptance, Holocaust and memory, and abortion. I'm just saying you're all dealing with very big topics, but you're doing it in the context of a Shorts festival. So I wonder how you kind of balance, how you're compressing these big ideas into short films. So how did that work for you and against you, I guess, is the question.
I spent most of my career as a journalist, so I'm used to cutting things down. Grand ideas of how long the story is going to be, and then the editor just tells you it'll be twice as powerful if it's a third as long. And I just think the same is true in shorts. You can get big ideas across in small spaces.
Yeah, I always pictured this story as a short, actually, because especially with the character of Esther, the great-grandmother, it always felt and looked to me when I envisioned it as like this weird fairy tale, and so, or like a folk tale, and I just always saw it as like a small little story that just like bounced around as opposed to a big feature film.
Shorts are very difficult to make, by the way.
Hello. First of all, I would like to say thank you so much for all of these films. It was incredibly moving. I could not stop crying. It was extremely touching. I want to kind of preface my question with an introduction to myself, because I think the themes that have been discussed today are pretty relevant to my life experience as well. Specifically what we were talking about in terms of like control. I come from a high control religion. My parents are very staunch evangelical Christians, and they are missionaries. In fact, my grandparents were also missionaries. So, third generation, very devout, very staunch. I am a fat, trans, disabled, queer. And I have always been unruly. I have always been, the word that's coming up for me is in Spanish, my first language, ingobernable, which is ungovernable. And so from a very early age, another thing, I'm also autistic and experience moments of being nonverbal. So because of all of that, I really dove into language acquisition and learning, and I ended up studying English literature in college. I took one of my favorite classes was a film is literature class, so this is like right up my alley. I love it. But in my journeys, I walked away from the faith very similarly to I believe the grandmother in my kippah. So what she mentioned about the milk was so poignant to me, because I have really struggled a lot with my faith in terms of like being told that you are loved right by your family. My parents would always tell me, we love you so much in the world, we love you more than anyone in the world, and the only person that loves you more is God. Yes, sorry. So, all this to say, I have a lot of experience with control and controlling narratives, and I hate it. Everything about me hates being controlled. And as I have been listening to everything that has been happening since October 7th, there's just no words, right? I sit and I grieve with you. And so the question that I have is a bit more rhetorical, but I'd like to ask you, what is the importance of controlling the narrative? And if you can sit in the silence of letting the truth speak for itself. Because that's how I returned to my faith.
We're living in a time where, like, there are videos on the internet, and there are things that, like, you look at them and then you, wait, that's not real. Like, there's a ton of straight up propaganda and false information out there, and I think that you know, getting the truth out about what is actually happening, and educating young people is so important. I mean, I heard someone on TikTok a few weeks ago after October 7th saying, the Jews should just go back to England. That is a result of, like, either a combination of propaganda, disinformation, and the truth meaning different things to different people. And I just think that, like, if we're going to have this fight, which I don't think we have a choice, we're in it, we're going to have to speak our truths and the historical truths that we know to be true, and make sure people know them to the best that we can, while recognizing also that we are outnumbered, and that's always going to be true too. But it feels more important than ever to fight for the truth as it is, as we know it, because there are a lot of other people who are diluting or completely misrepresenting the facts for their own agendas, and it's harming Jewish people, and that's, I think, evidenced by the fact that anti-Semitic incidents are up by over 400% in the last 5 weeks. That's what I would say.
That's an interesting piece, actually, to say, too, about the narrative and controlling that narrative, because it actually contradicts, you know, what you want. So or don't want, I should say. You know, we're here now out there creating films and stories and creating TikTok videos, however you want to say it, to actually help bring that narrative forward. So in fact, we sort of need to control the narrative. We need that control. So I think this is where filmmaking can really play a huge part, and a lot of people think TikTok videos are films. They are, really. So anything in that short narrative story is a film. It's saying something, it's meaning something, especially if 1 million people click through it.
If we don't control the narrative, somebody else will.
Right.
Sometimes being ungovernable is a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other questions? I think that we will wrap it up. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you for making the film. Thank you for the museum, the assistant, and the film festival. We'll see you all tomorrow.